Right now, somewhere on your property, there's a pile of waste that's worth more than a bag of fertilizer costing you $30 a pop. And 90% of farmers throw it away, burn it, or bury it wrong, and never even know what they lost. I'm about to show you how to turn that waste into the richest, blackest, most alive soil you have ever put your hands in. And the wild part? You are going to do almost nothing to make it happen. Stick with me here, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly why the fanciest, most expensive composting method on the market might actually be making your soil worse, and what to do instead that costs you nothing but a little patience. Before we go further, if you're the kind of farmer who likes doing things the smart way instead of the hard way, hit subscribe right now. I put out real, practical, no-nonsense ground-level advice every single week, and you don't want to miss what's coming. Now let's get into it. Every fall, the woods do something no machine on earth can replicate. Nobody's out there in the timber turning that forest floor. Nobody's checking moisture. Nobody's fussing with a thermometer or a ratio chart. And yet, underneath those leaves, nature is quietly building the finest soil you will ever see. No effort, no equipment, no fuss. So here's the question that's going to change how you think about compost forever. If nature can build perfect soil doing literally nothing, why are you out there sweating over a tumbler bin? See, most of what you've been told about composting is built around speed. Hot composting. Get the recipe exact. Keep it wet just right. Turn it every few days with a fork so it cooks hot enough inside to break everything down fast. Do it perfectly, and in a month you've got finished compost. And look, it works. I won't lie to you about that. But here's what nobody tells you, and this is the part that's going to sting a little if you've been doing it that way. When you cook a pile that hot, you are literally burning off nutrients. You are cooking out the good stuff. And that heat is too much for the worms, too much for the fungus, too much for most of the microscopic life that actually makes soil productive. You're working yourself half to death to build something weaker than what you'd get by doing less. That right there is where most farmers are getting it backwards. A slow, cool pile, one you just leave alone to rot down over time, ends up crawling with worm activity, laced through with beneficial fungus, absolutely stacked with biology. It builds richer soil. It holds more of its own nutrition. Slow isn't the lazy man's backup plan. Slow is the better method. It just asks one thing of you: patience. And once you understand what that trade actually gets you, you'll never look at a $40 spinning bin the same way again. Let me tell you how I found this out, because it cost me a couple of wasted years to learn it. I used to run one of those tumbler setups, cranking it, babying the mix, checking on it like it was livestock. It wore me out. Then one fall, I got buried in work. Sick, behind, no time for any of it. And I just heaped everything in a pile behind the barn and forgot about it completely. Come the next summer, I went back there expecting a mess. Instead, underneath the top layer, I found the best compost I had ever produced in my life, and I hadn't touched it, not once. That was the day I quit chasing fast and started trusting slow. And what I'm about to walk you through is exactly how I've done it ever since. The setup, the feeding schedule, the mistakes that ruin a pile, and the one system that means you are never, ever without finished compost again. Let's start with the build, because this is where a lot of guys overcomplicate it before they even get started. You do not need a fancy bin. You do not need to spend $400 on equipment. You need one of three things, and every single one of them is cheap or completely free. Option 1, just a heap. A pile in a corner of the property, right on the ground. That's a legitimate compost system. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Option 2, bend some wire fencing into a ring. Option 3, stand up 4 old pallets on their ends, wire the corners together, and you've got yourself a bin that cost you nothing. But here's the one rule you cannot break, and this is where people mess it up without even realizing it. That pile has got to sit on bare dirt. Not concrete, not a tarp. Because when it's sitting right on the soil, every worm and microbe already living down there can crawl straight up into your pile and start working for you immediately, put it on a tarp, and you've cut off your own workforce before you even started. Now, size matters more than people think. A pile roughly a yard wide and a yard tall holds heat and moisture far better than some small heap, and it'll finish faster because of it. Want to speed things up even more? Toss in a couple shovels of old finished compost or plain garden soil when you build it. That seeds the whole thing with microbes right from day one. Small move, big head start. Now here's where a lot of farmers get tripped up. What actually goes in the pile? It's two categories, greens and browns. Your greens are the wet, fresh material, kitchen scraps, grass clippings, green weeds, coffee grounds. That's your nitrogen. That's what kickstarts the whole process. Your browns are the dry, dead material, fallen leaves, straw, cardboard, shredded paper, dead plant matter, wood chips. That's your carbon, and that's the bulk of what you're building. Here's the ratio you need to remember, and it's forgiving, not exact. You want roughly 2 to 3 times more brown than green. Why? Because a pile that's mostly wet green material turns to slime and starts smelling like a problem real fast. But keep it loaded with dry browns, and it stays airy, breathable, and doesn't stink at all. Here's a habit that will save you every time. Every time you dump kitchen scraps or green material onto that pile, throw a handful of dry browns right over the top like a blanket. That blanket kills the smell, keeps the flies away, and keeps your ratio balanced without you ever having to measure a single thing. I keep a stash of bagged fall leaves sitting right next to my pile year-round for exactly this reason. Leaves are the best free brown material there is. Don't you dare let a single bag of them leave your property again. Now let's talk about moisture and air, because this is where the slow method basically runs itself. You want that pile about as damp as a wrung-out sponge, not soaked, just damp. Most of the time, rain handles this for you completely. If you're in a dry stretch and the pile's gone dusty, hit it with the hose. If it swings the other way and gets slimy or sour smelling, throw more dry browns on it and it corrects itself. Air is where hot composting and slow composting really split apart. Hot composting requires constant turning to force air through the pile. Slow composting doesn't. You just build it loose from the start. Don't pack it down. Mix in some chunky material like crumpled leaves or broken twigs so there's natural air pockets running through it. That's it. Built loose, it breathes on its own. Now here's the part that separates farmers who always have finished compost from farmers who are constantly starting over, the two-pile system. This is the single biggest mistake people make, and it's the reason so many piles never actually finish. If you keep dumping fresh material on the same pile forever, it never gets a chance to complete the process. It just stays a work in progress permanently. So you run two piles side by side. One is your working pile. That's the one getting scraps and material added to it right now. The other is your resting pile. You've stopped adding to it and it's just sitting there finishing on its own. You fill pile 1 over a few months. Once it's full, you stop adding to it completely and let it rest. That becomes your resting pile. Now you start filling pile 2. By the time pile 2 is full, pile 1 has finished into rich, crumbly, ready-to-use compost. You scoop it out, spread it on your fields or garden beds, and that empty space becomes your new working pile. Round and round it goes. 2 piles, and you are never without finished compost again. I keep a small covered container under the kitchen counter for scraps, and every few days I carry it out, dump it on the working pile, throw my brown blanket over the top, and walk away. Takes about a minute. Now, what goes in, and more importantly, what has to stay out? Because this next part could ruin an entire batch if you get it wrong. Almost anything that came from a plant is fair game. Fruit and vegetable scraps, coffee grounds and filters, tea bags, crushed eggshells, grass clippings, leaves, straw, spent garden plants, shredded paper, cardboard. All welcome. Keep out meat, bones, dairy, and greasy food that draws pests and creates a real smell problem, same as with any compost method. But here's the warning that matters most for slow compost specifically, and it's different from hot composting rules. Because a cool pile never heats up enough to kill weed seeds or plant diseases, you cannot throw in weeds that have already gone to seed, the roots of aggressive perennial weeds, or any diseased plant material. All of that will survive completely intact inside a slow pile. And if you spread that compost across your fields next season, you're planting the exact problem you were trying to get rid of. Healthy plant material? Yes. Seeded weeds and diseased plants? Absolutely not. So how long does this actually take? Somewhere between 6 months and a year, depending on your climate and what's in the pile. It moves faster in warm months, slows way down in winter, and picks back up when spring hits. Here's how you know it's finished. You look at it and you genuinely cannot identify what any individual piece used to be. It's turned into this dark, almost black, crumbly material that smells sweet and earthy, like walking through a forest after rain. If you've still got some chunks, twigs, or eggshell pieces that haven't broken down, that's completely normal. Run the batch through a wire screen over a wheelbarrow, toss the leftover chunks back on the pile for another round, and keep the fine, dark material that falls through. That's your finished product. Now here's a bonus method for anyone who wants the absolute laziest version of this. And I say that as a compliment because I use it myself. It's called leaf mold, and it might be the easiest soil amendment in existence. Rake up your fall leaves, pile them up, stuff them in a wire ring or a bag with holes poked in it, and walk away for a year, sometimes 2. No scraps, no greens, no ratio to think about. Just leaves and time. What comes out the other end is dark, crumbly, sweet-smelling material that holds water like a sponge, carries beneficial fungus, and softens compacted soil better than almost anything you can buy. It costs you nothing but leaves we're going to haul off anyway. Stop bagging your leaves for the curb. Every single one of them is free soil-building material. Once your compost is finished, using it is the easy part. Spread a layer, an inch or 2, right across your beds or fields, like frosting a cake, and let the worms pull it down into the soil naturally. Use it to fill planting holes. Mix it into containers. A little goes a long way because it's alive, packed with worms, fungus, and biology that gives your plants a real foundation to grow in, not just a temporary feeding. And that's the entire point of doing it slow. You don't end up with soil that's just fed. You end up with soil that's alive. So here's the whole thing, boiled down. Build a simple pile on bare ground. Feed it more browns than greens, and keep that brown blanket on top every time you add scraps. Let the rain water it. Keep it loose so it breathes on its own. Do not turn it. Run 2 piles so one's always finishing while the other fills. Keep seeded weeds and diseased plants out, and then give it the one ingredient that actually makes the whole system work. Time. 6 months, maybe a year, however long it takes. Nature's been running this exact process since long before either one of us showed up, and she doesn't need your help to do it right. If this changed the way you think about your own compost setup, do me a favor and hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what you're building your pile out of, and subscribe if you haven't already. Because next week I'm covering the mistake that's silently killing more garden soil than anything else on this list, and you are not going to want to miss it. Go start that pile this week, then go do something else for a good long while, and let nature handle the rest. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.